Novus, the new voice. Vox Novus, the new dimension. Vox Novus, thought and movement leaders who will share from their experience and offer tools to help us navigate our rapidly changing world. My name is Victor Furman. Welcome to Vox Novus, the new voice. In any normal year, the approaching holiday season would be met by most with anticipation, excitement, gift shopping, the planning of family gatherings, and holiday parties. Even during normal years, there is often stress that accompanies the joy. With the unprecedented series of events that 2020 has delivered, one might question not only how we might greet the holidays, but whether there's a reason to celebrate at all. In this era of COVID-19, mixed messages and outright mistruths from leadership, egregious acts of racial violence and bigotry, and the most divided this nation has been since the 1800s. Is there a way to remember who we are as a people, embrace one another with compassion and love, and find joy in this holiday season? My guest this week on Vox Novus, Dr. Dravon James, offers us tools, insights, and the wisdom we need to make the most not out of only this holiday season, but the months and years to come. Dr. Dravon James is the founder of Everyday Peace, the host of Everyday Peace on Unity Radio, a life coach, and the author of Freedom is Your Birthright. As an inspirational speaker, Dravon's goal is to educate, empower, and inspire others to build the life of their dreams, no matter what shows up in their lives, good, bad, or otherwise. Dravon is the happy mother of 2 teenagers, a successful pharmacist, inspirational speaker, author, and actress, whose career credits include a recurring role on HBO's acclaimed series The Wire, many stage plays, and independent films. She continues to inspire and teach what she knows to be the most effective tools for transforming, creating, and building a spectacular life, tapping into everyday peace. Her client list includes the University of the District of Columbia, New Hope World Ministries, Today's Care Adult Daycare, Stadium Place, and Next Chapter Online Radio. Her website is drdravonjames.com, and she joins me this week to share her wisdom, her path, and tell us about her book, Freedom is Your Birthright. Please welcome to Vox Novus, Dr. Dravon James. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me.
And thank you so much for joining us. During the context of the interview, may I refer to you as Dravon?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. So, Dravon, please share with our listeners your early life and how it shaped your path.
Oh, I'm glad you asked that, because so much of what happened in my life has framed the work that I've decided to do and the woman that I've decided to become. So as my bio may or may not have stated here, is that I'm from the south side of Chicago, and I grew up in very humble beginnings. And I think that's putting it very nicely and warm and cozy, but it was a very rough childhood, and they were sprinkled with a lot of poverty and all the things that poverty brings with it. But the blessing that I had was a wonderful mom and a wonderful brother and sister. I'm the oldest of 3 children. And during that childhood experience and a little bit during college, I experienced some homelessness, which helped me to really see the world differently and realize that that Charles Dickens had it right. It is the best of times and the worst of times, all at the same time. It's just a matter of your perspective. So that really kind of shaped me. That, in addition to the fact that my mom had this great wisdom, that no matter what was going on in our life, she managed to somehow figure out a way to have us in church all day on Saturday, a New Thought Church on Saturdays, and then a Pentecostal church on Sundays. And if you know anything about the Pentecostal religion, that was an all-day experience too. Mm. And I thought those things were really horrible as a child. But as I grew up, as early as being a senior, graduated from high school, going into college, it already had started to impact me. My brother, who's 13 months younger than me, gave me a book, The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. And I'd never heard the term inspirational speaker or motivational speaker before in my life, but I knew that when I read that book, it sort of bridged my world and all the things that happened. And it gave me this feeling of all these things have happened for your good. You know, you hear that a lot, but that book made a believer out of me. And I knew that whatever that book did for me, I want to do for other people.
Absolutely. I had a mentor and teacher who used to say, everything is unfolding in divine order. We may not see it, we may not appreciate it, but ultimately, if we take a step back and look at the overall picture, there's a purpose at work for each of us.
Yes, yes. And you know, and the thing is you, as we mature, we realize that we don't need to know what it is in the moment, right? That's what trust and faith and this journey is about. It's just to trust that this is the truth. And to be at peace with as it unfolds. That's the growth that life requires. That we move into this period of peace. That this too is okay.
Absolutely. And as you shared your mom's wisdom being so effective in your life and so important in your life, my mother, when we were children, my dad got sick when we were very young, passed away unfortunately when we were very young. And we didn't have a lot, but my mother said, if you think about it, we never wanted for anything we truly needed. We may not have had surplus or excess or any of the luxuries of life, but we had a roof over our heads, we had a bed to sleep in, and we had food in our bellies.
Yeah, yeah. Everything that you need shows up when you need it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
That is so true about life.
Now, there are many actors who can truly say, I'm not in medicine, but I play it on TV. And you can actually say both. How do you balance pharmacy and acting?
Oh, I love that question. And I get it a lot too. So I think because I am working in my passion that the universe just makes way for it. When I think about it too much, I think to myself, I can't do it. There's no way I could do it. But it just seems to work together for me. When the right roles come, I audition a lot, and I wish I got every role I auditioned for, but that doesn't happen. But when the right opportunity comes, the job just sort of opens a way for me to do that. And obviously I'm not working a lot in acting right now because of COVID, and I do run a hospital pharmacy. So it's really busy right now in the world of medicine and pharmacy. So that's occupying a lot of my time, but it's in season. So that this is the season for that. And then the acting will pick back up. I was in the middle of a production when COVID first hit and that got suspended. But it just seems, I believe that if we move in our passion, the universe will support us.
Absolutely.
And I have found it to be true.
Absolutely. As they say in Ecclesiastes, there's a time for every purpose and a season for every purpose under heaven, isn't there?
Absolutely. Oh, my gosh. Yes, it is.
What drew you to coaching, inspirational speaking, and writing?
Oh, I think I've always been drawn to service. So that has been my thing, is I wanted to help people. I didn't know how I was going to do that. I always thought it was going to be through healthcare until I read Norman Vincent Peale's book. But once I read that book, I knew that it was something beyond the physical that I wanted to help people with. I still wasn't sure that I, again, didn't know anything about inspirational speaking or motivational speaking or even coaching. But as I gave into that, doors just started opening up. And interestingly enough, I was working as a consultant in pharmacy, and I decided to start infusing the end of my lectures, which were always to healthcare professionals. I talked for maybe 45, 50 minutes about a drug topic, and at the last 10 or 15 minutes, I talk about what I coined as everyday peace with Dr. Dravon James, and as a way to give some inspiration and to give them some encouragement. And one year, I was invited to do a keynote address, which wasn't unusual, but when they called, they said, we don't want you to talk about anything related to pharmacy or drug therapy. We want you to talk about that thing you do at the end, that peace. Mm. And that's when I really became convinced that it was helping somebody other than me.
Absolutely. It's interesting that you say that, because March ended my 42-year career in business, in industrial sales of all things. And the last, since my mid-30s, I had a spiritual path reopened for me. And I incorporated that spiritual path into teaching young customer service and salespeople. And I would always ask them to find out what the customer really wants. And I said, we're not only customers in business, we're customers to each other in life. And I would close my presentation by saying, find out what the other customers in your life, your family, your friends, those that you associate with, your neighbors, what do they really want? And that's the way to a successful life.
Yeah, absolutely. When you come to serve, and that's the way to get served as well. You realize that you're your happiest when you're serving someone else from your truth.
Absolutely. I opened our program discussing the unprecedented challenges and uncertainty that this year has manifested and how we may approach this holiday season. We have Thanksgiving coming up next week, Christmas, Hanukkah, and Kwanzaa next month, and it may be impossible for many families to gather in person because of the COVID restrictions. What advice would you offer them for creating a holiday experience they would enjoy?
Oh, that's so wonderful, because the beautiful things about this holiday season, this period of the year, is it's so focused on relationship. And for years, I've gone to a church where the pastor says it's all about relationship or it ain't about nothing. And so that's so very true. And this time period really reinforces that. So we're forced to face things differently. And I think maybe this could be a period of growth for us as well, because in this period, as we all are aware, this is the nice thing to think about family, but there's also a lot of high anxiety around this time period. I do a lot of coaching with people around this time of the year, and there is this expression of just this heightened anxiety, family members and the pressure and this and that. So looking at this whole season a bit differently, right? And being able to be in relationship in our heart and our soul without the physicalness, right? Hopefully will give us an opportunity to recenter ourselves and ground ourselves in what's real, right? It's not about the meal. It's not about the gifts. It's about the relationship. And that you can have via, so many platforms. There's all these different social media platforms. But hopefully this will be an opportunity to go a little bit deeper. And it will be difficult. I'm aware of that, because we get so entrenched in the tradition. But just pulling back and saying, okay, here's an opportunity to really, really value this person, to really feel that this year, instead of going about the robotics of buying the gift and doing this and doing that, all the busy stuff, which is really nice. We like tradition. But this is an opportunity to go a bit deeper this year and really have that relationship, whether it be a conversation on the phone or meeting through social media platforms, but to do that and really honor each other. So I think staying in that space, my family and I were a little disappointed. We traveled to Atlanta. We were going to, and we're not going to be able to do that, but we're still going to connect with those family members and be thankful for our presence. There's so many people who have lost family members. My condolences goes out to them during this time of year, and they're not even, they'd give anything to gather through any format. So we'll have to find our way to gratitude and just to be thankful that we're still here and we're still able to communicate and to gather in our thoughts over the telephone, social media. So it'll be different, but it'll still be wonderful.
You have 2 teenage children. What are you telling them about the approach that you're going to take to this holiday as a family?
Oh, so that's interesting. We just had this conversation today. And I told them, this is a time to be grateful for what we have and not mourn over the things that we don't have. The world is evolving, and part of growth and development is that this uncomfortable period, it's not going to be this way forever, but it's never going to go back probably to the way that it was. And so we get to make some new traditions and to embrace change, to embrace challenges, right? Be open, because when you're open, you're more flexible. And when you're more flexible, you're more receiving. You're not like that sturdy oak tree, which is so wonderful. But when the winds of change comes, it's the first thing down on the ground if the wind is strong enough. So we're going to bend more like the palm tree, and we're going to bounce back up, and things are going to be fine. It's going to be different, but it's going to be beautiful.
Flexibility is so important, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. And, realizing that we're not meant to go back to the way things were. That's not why challenges come. Challenges come to change you.
And changes for the better.
Yes.
Absolutely. So many people, especially I'm here in New York City now, and we're going back into a more difficult time again because of the resurgence of the COVID. And so many people are reluctant to follow the protocol and wear masks when they go out. And they're not just wearing masks for themselves, they're wearing masks for everyone, for the ones they love, for strangers, for everyone. What do you say to people about wearing masks?
Yeah. So it's all, and it is difficult. First of all, I think the thing is just to acknowledge that we are all different, right? And so we all have different tolerances, and we have, it's difficult to breathe through a mask for some people. Someone told me the other day, it's difficult to hear when the mask is on. Okay. We're all different. And to appreciate that first, because I think it's easy to go into this criticism, you should want to do this, right? So to exercise that understanding that it is difficult, and just because I'm a person who can do difficult things easier than you or the next person makes me know better. We're all in this together. So some tolerance. And then to say that the mask really is to protect the other person. And none of us would stand in front of another person and say, I don't care about protecting you. We would not say that out loud, right? So the mask does not protect the wearer, right? So if I'm wearing a mask, it's not for my protection. Right? Your mask protects me. My mask protects you. And just to have that outlook and say, would you be willing to participate in the protection of children that are in the area or elderly people in the area? And generally, I do find that people, when you put it that way to them, they're like, oh, yeah. So it's not, and you hear young people say, or not just young people, I don't mean to come down on them, but people will say, I'm not afraid. I'm not worried about it. But they sometimes just need a little patience to say, and it's not to protect you, it's to protect the elderly person next to you or that young person down there that's looking up to you and hoping that this environment is safe. So you're doing it for the other person.
And that's really what it's about. It's for the other. It's doing it for those that are around us, whether we know them or not. It's doing it for the common humanity, for compassion.
Right. And so people, get really, I think, focus on the politics behind it. And I think when we remove the politics and just say it's for the person, the individual who may even share your views. Right? This is not a political thing. This is for your neighbor. This is for your mom. This is for people tend to say, oh, yeah, I get it now. This is not a political stance. It's just to protect the other guy and the other girl and the other child.
And there are some who say that having to wear a mask infringes on their rights, but they don't realize that with rights come responsibilities.
Oh, isn't that so beautiful? I wrote a book, Freedom is Your Birthright, and that's one of the things I say, that freedom is not free, right? Freedom requires sacrifice, right? And so when we have all of these rights, and we have a lot of them, thank goodness, but we do have a responsibility, and we want to take our responsibility as seriously as we take our freedoms.
Absolutely. In a normal year, as I mentioned, many families deal with stress and challenges. How would you address the following issues? And we're going to run out of time in the segment, but we'll get a couple of these in. First of all, bitterness over the circumstances and perhaps family issues.
Well, the circumstances being a number of things, the political climate, the injustice and all of this stuff. And, I think, first of all, realizing that being bitter only draws more things to be bitter about. So here is the more creative looking at is, how can I become better as a result of this? And really challenging people in my circle, and this is something we talk about a lot, is how can you become better because of this? Do you need to get involved and become more socially involved in activities that would promote the kind of viewpoints that you have? So, and same thing with family issues. What can you do to be part of the solution, and looking at it from that point? Because do we need probably the thing that has you so upset is someone else's bitterness. So bitterness doesn't produce something sweet, right? We can't turn the lights out and hope it gets brighter in here. So looking at it from a different perspective and saying, what can I do? This situation has happened. How can I be part of the positive change, the solution?
Turn the bitterness into betterness.
Yes. The bitterness into betterness. I love that.
My guest is Dr. Dravon James. We're going to be talking about her book, Freedom is Your Birthright, and some other topics concerning the current situation. Dr. James, please tell our listeners where they can get your book and find out more about you and the wonderful work you do.
Absolutely. My book, Freedom is Your Birthright, is available on Amazon. And my website, which is drdravonjames.com, gives a lot of information about where I am, where I'm speaking, and what I'm doing. And then, of course, there's my radio program, which airs every Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Unity Online Radio Network.
And we'll be back with more of Dravon James after these words on the Om Times Radio Network.
The cutting edge of conscious radio, Om Times Radio, IOM FM. Om Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Om Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
So I'm a cat, and I just moved in with this new human. And she's got this little toy she's always playing with, all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week, she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
Imagine yourself being transported to India, to the banks of the Ganga and an ashram in Rishikesh. Visualize that you are welcome to satsang with an American sannyasi who shares the wisdom of her guru. Your visualization has manifested. Join Sattvi Bhagawati Saraswati for inspiration and transformation every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio.
A social distancing tip.
Keeping your distance from others is important in slowing the spread of coronavirus. So here are some fun things to do alone. Read a book, take a walk, unpack your suitcase from that trip you took last September, paint a self-portrait, catch up on a TV series, do a puzzle. Remember, we should all stay home to lower the risk for everyone. For more info, visit coronavirus.gov.
Let's all do our part, because we're all #AloneTogether. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Hello, I'm Lisa Berry. Join me every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for Light on Living. A chance to see new, hear different, and feel more as I shine the spotlight on all the ways to lighten the load of life's challenges. Light on Living is your link to that new way you're looking for, that new understanding that will enhance your life, and that positive connection that will support your growth. So join me and you'll gain insight and start to see things in a new way that motivates you.
Hi, we're the Goo Goo Dolls. We're fortunate that our daughters have what they need to grow and learn. But that isn't the case for nearly 13 million kids in the U.S. that struggle with hunger.
Childhood hunger is a heartbreaking reality that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and provides it to families and children in need.
You can help kids in need in your community by visiting feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Back on Vox Novus, my guest this week is Dr. Dravon James. Dravon, we were talking about in normal years the things that family deal with at the times of holidays. Let's go over some of the other issues. How about the tension of gift shopping, especially when so many are unemployed, have lost their jobs, and are struggling to pay their bills?
You know, this is a big one for me because, as I mentioned in the beginning of the show, is that having been born into poverty and this gift-giving season, as it were, was a difficult one when we were children because oftentimes my mom didn't have the luxury of being able to do a lot of gift shopping. You know, we're just really blessed to have our needs met. And from there, I think there becomes a true appreciation of the gift being the season, the reason for the season, and the relationships. And that's difficult, especially if you are accustomed to having a commerce holiday season. But you may find that as you embrace it, talk about it openly with your loved ones, that it will be a more fulfilling season on a different level. Won't be easy. It won't be easy because it'll take time to transition. You know, so much of the seasons we talked about a few minutes ago, so much of our seasons are built on, you know, the gift part of the season and less of the relationship part. But I believe the distance, the social distancing, the quarantine, going back to this level 1 or phase 1 for a lot of areas will cause us to be in our homes more. And unfortunately, the economics of it is that there have been a lot of job loss. So people will have to scale back. But if you look closely, you'll find that those relationships that you have intact are your biggest gift. Your biggest earthly gift are those relationships, and they're priceless. And so lean towards that. Find gratitude in the fact that you still have these precious relationships, and know that this season will pass. It will pass. And remembering that the challenge hasn't come so that we can then go back and become a totally consumer-based holiday. We don't want to necessarily go back to that, but the season will come again that you'll be able to purchase more. But in this season, learning to appreciate what we have here and finding joy in that will be something that will be priceless.
And another gift that we may offer each other is the gift of presence.
Yes. And holding space. You know, even if you're not physically with each other, right? Being able to hold space. I remember seeing something years ago or reading it, looking up at the same sky that a loved one was looking up at. And I happened to be here in my home, and a family member called me and said, "You've got to go up outside and look at the moon right now." And that was so comforting to know that though we were miles apart, we were looking at the same moon. Holding presence is very important.
Absolutely. And as quantum mechanics has taught us, there is no such thing as distance. We're actually all together in the same space at the same time. Even though we don't see that, we really are.
Absolutely. That is so true. Couldn't have said that any better.
And with the gift of presence also comes the gift of listening. And we don't have to be physically together to truly listen and hear what the other person is saying and not necessarily have to respond, but give them the sacred space to say what they have to say.
Yeah, just holding that space together. And that's what we miss. You know, when we talk about people who have passed away and no longer with us, is that we don't feel that we have the opportunity to hold that same physical space together. It's not about being in close proximity. It's about being on the earth.
Absolutely. So we talked about the true gifts. What about holiday chores, getting the house ready and cleaning? A lot of people won't be doing that this year, or cooking. What do you say to them?
Find other things that bring you joy. Make new traditions. Find it. We find joy. We build joy. We create joy. Because other than that, it's just cleaning. You know, if you ask someone to clean in the middle of June, it doesn't have the same impact of joy because they realize, what am I doing this for, right? So create purpose for yourself. Create purpose and find joy. You know, and maybe this is your season of rest. There's something in there for you. Typically, if you look at the average mother during this time of the year, as happy as they look, they are tired, right? And they're burning the candle at both ends. And maybe this is your season this year to really sit back and wherever you are and watch the sky and, you know, really spend some time in self-awareness and in conversation and not so busy. You know, reminded of that story of the Bible, you know, I think it was Martha who was so busy about chores and this and that. This could be your season of just being in your I amness.
In that holy presence.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Perhaps one of the most important things is allaying the fears of young children and also the angst of teens. How do you address that?
Oh, I have young children, nieces and nephews, and I have young adults, college senior and a high school senior. So that is something that is very close to my heart. And one thing that I find that most young people need is to know that no matter what's going on, that the people who they love will continue to love them. irregardless of what's happening, irregardless of what the news is saying, what will or will not be under the Christmas tree. That the love is permanent and is not conditional to what's happening with COVID or job loss or social distancing. They really want to know that those relationships, because they really get it. Young people they really do get it. That this whole journey is about relationship.
It's all about building those relationships and providing not only comfort, but that sense of security.
Yeah, and knowing that no matter what we are here, we're in this together. You're just as precious and just as loved and adored as you were before March.
Absolutely. And what do you say to those who say that joy at this time, based on all the circumstances, is unrealistic?
Oh, we do hear that, right? And so I say this to that joy is an internal state of being. It's not conditional to what's going on in the external world. So happiness, however, oftentimes has to do with what is happening. And so even if your situation of the happening, what's going on around you seems dismal, I challenge you to look within and ask yourself, where does joy come from? What is joy? Joy is quite different than being happy. It is not contingent on the political climate or the economics of the situation. Joy is contingent upon you knowing that above all, you are precious. You're precious. You're more than your income. You're more than your political affiliation, your ethnicity. You in yourself, just the way that you are precious. That's joyous, that you've come for a reason and that this world is better because you're here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We sort of touched upon this before, but let's look a little deeper. In normal years, holidays are challenged when one is grieving the loss of a loved one. How may we approach that this year and offer comfort to those who grieve?
Oh, that's a big one. In normal years, and this has been anything but a normal year, but one of the things that the holidays do help us to do, if we allow it, and we go into this place of flow, meaning that we acknowledge whatever shows up for us in our emotional space, knowing that it's come to serve us and not to harm us. So we move from resistance to allowing, that if you're in a place where you're mourning the loss of something, that you become aware of that and acknowledge it and allow yourself to be okay with that. Allow yourself to sit with it and say, this is where I am right now. Not sinking to depression, but falling into the memory of this. I got to experience this, whatever that was, the presence of that person in your life. Allow yourself to be there and be present with the emotion.
Absolutely.
When you do this, here's the beautiful thing about this. When you practice this non-resistance and this allowing, you'll realize that emotion didn't come to punish you. It didn't come to throw you into depression. It came to fill you with a sense of gratitude and appreciation. And in that moment, if you allow it, it'll stay for just a season till you get what you need from it, and it'll flow right through you. You don't get stuck there. Many of us worry that we're going to get stuck in that emotion, so we try to resist it. And then it lingers and it becomes something of a mind experience instead of what is supposed to be experienced in the body and just flow through us as energy.
And as those of us who have dealt with people who are grieving and have comforted them, there is no right way or wrong way to grieve. It's an individual process, and it's perfect in any way that we do it.
Yes, absolutely. Just the allowing. Yes. Yes.
And perhaps the greatest comfort you can give to someone who is grieving is not trying to talk them out of their feelings, but give them, again, we talked about that presence and the sacred act of listening.
Yes, yes. And you said it best. Whatever you're doing, whatever you're feeling, it's right in that moment.
Absolutely. Moving away from the holidays, are there hidden blessings that you can find in the current COVID crisis?
Oh, my goodness. Yes, I wrote a whole article. Yes, and I was just talking about my own life for a moment, and perhaps someone will find their self in that in this brief story. But yes, I think the prior to COVID, when I consider just my own life prior to COVID, the busyness of it, the one, always time to squeeze in one more activity, one more appointment, one more this, and then COVID bringing that to an abrupt stop. Now, I work in hospital, so I have not been quarantined and in the house for any long periods of time, but I've gone to work and back to the house and found that in that space, I reconnected with me. So just being able to slow down and listen and hear that internal voice that's constantly speaking and directing, but we're so full of distraction that we cannot connect. So that's the number one thing that I found there in the COVID. And when I talk to people too, is that being able to slow down and just listen to yourself and be with yourself and realize that I am more than the career. I am more than the next event or the next sale at Macy's or wherever that is, right? That none of those things really matter. That what matters most is me and my self-awareness and how I communicate that self-awareness with other people through my relationships and through nature. Another beautiful thing that's happened during the COVID is people reconnecting with nature. I've heard people say that they've heard more birds and wildlife than they've ever heard before. And this is even in city environments, that they've really been able to see things that they haven't seen before because they've slowed down. So I think that one of the major things is that, and there has been compassion, there has been empathy. That's beautiful.
Is this what you refer to as leaning into COVID instead of leaning out?
Yeah, leaning into COVID is looking in there and seeing, this is a challenge, isn't it? There's so many things that are challenging us here. And so we lean into that challenge with our eyes wide open and saying, this is here and this is what's happening. And this is what's happening inside of me as a result of that. And sure, sometimes we throw our little tantrum and we want to be here and we want to be there. But when we settle down, we realize that I'm okay. I'm okay. Look at this. I'm okay without that. I'm okay without that. And that's beautiful to know that we can exist, that we are enough.
Absolutely. You had mentioned about getting back into nature at this time. I live in Queens, New York, and we have a tiny little urban garden in our backyard here. And I had never seen, other than pigeons and occasional sparrows, but this year, blue jays every day. Robins every day, cardinals every day. It's really amazing the reconnection to nature that's taken place at a time when humanity had to quiet down.
Yes, and you're not the first person to tell me that. People living in city environments who are just seeing just beautiful parts of nature appear in their world that weren't there before. So this almost is, it's refreshing. I go back to that Charles Dickens, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, right? Because there truly are some things that are happening that are very, very unfortunate. But there is an unveiling of a world that we were right in the midst of, that we couldn't see.
Absolutely. What advice would you offer couples whose relationships are being strained by the pandemic?
Oh, yeah. Well, I've heard a lot of that. Too much time together. And so, to exercise patience. Use this time not to correct your partner and not even to correct yourself, to get to know you. This is your time. This is your time. And to watch interrelationships and interpersonal relationships, just to watch, become the watcher, not so much the speaker and the corrector and the teacher, right? Because everyone is experiencing their own thoughts and emotions concerning whether being too much time together with a little less money coming in. There's a lot of things happening, but realizing that this is not your time to go into correcting of another person. This is your special time to fall in love with you again. And allow your partner to do that for themselves.
Absolutely. My guest is Dr. Dravon James. She'll be back with us after these words on the Om Times Radio Network.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of Times Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from New Thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Look out, world, we're getting strong. The future's here and we belong. She can STEM, she can do more. Like build a rocket and watch it soar. And make the world a better place. Oh, she can STEM, so can you. Find a cure, invent something new. There's no challenge in the world that she can't face. She can STEM.
Learn more at She Can STEM. A message brought to you by the Ad Council.
Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
A social distancing tip.
Putting distance between yourself and others is critical to slowing the spread of coronavirus. So here are ways to stay in contact without the physical contact part. Call, send a text, set up a video conference, post on social media, dedicate a song on the radio. If you have symptoms of fever, dry cough, and shortness of breath, call your healthcare provider before going to their office. For more info, visit coronavirus.gov.
Let's all do our part because we're all #AloneTogether. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Bill Maher. I can find humor in almost anything, but one thing I never laugh about is cruelty to animals. If you don't get the joke either, write People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, 501 Front Street, Norfolk, Virginia, 23510.
Back on Vox Novus, my guest this week is Dr. Dravon James. Dravon, how may we use this time to, as you say, rekindle the fire within and live our dreams?
Oh, we're going to do this the way we would do it even if we were not in COVID. COVID makes it a little bit easier, let me say, and that is spending time with self. We are so busy. And as much as I love building relationships, until you build the earthly relationship that you'll have forever with self, it becomes quite difficult to build any other relationship that's built on a solid foundation. So rekindling the fire within and living the life of your dreams requires that you get to know the person you are from within. Get to figure out what are your thoughts on this? What do you, and more so, I started off by saying thoughts, but what I really should say, what are your feelings? What do you feel in this moment? What do you feel? And following that feeling, because there is the pathway to your dreams. Following your feelings. Instead of someone telling you what you feel about this or what you think about that and adding value to that. Many of us know quite well what our neighbors feel about something, what our children do, what the media feels, and we're quite confused or not even, really aware that we don't know what we feel. So during this time period, get to do that. I encourage people, spend as much time as you can in nature. If it's just sitting on your porch and looking up at the sky and in quiet solitude in that space, Your body and your heart and soul will tell you so much about yourself. And it's been saying it. We've just been so preoccupied.
To that point, we had briefly touched on this in the last segment. One of the biggest challenges for many of us in normal times is self-worth and self-love. How may we find the love and compassion that we're so willing to offer others and give it to ourselves?
Oh, recognize the child in yourself. Recognize that child. And something that I teach my clients a lot is to take care of that child in you, whether you're, a strapping CEO or a mom of, 3 or 4. Spend some time recognizing and loving the child within yourself with total acceptance and forgiveness for everything, just like we would do any child that's in our life. We take care to get to know them, to honor them, to correct them when they need correcting with love. Take care of your child. Take care of your inner child.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of folks are angry right now, and righteously so. How may we acknowledge this anger and transform it into a tool for change?
Yeah, anger is such a necessary emotion, right?
Absolutely.
The Bible says, do not let your anger cause you to sin. It never says do not become angry, and people get that confused because there's so much energy in anger, right? Righteous indignation, right? So there's so much energy there. So allowing that without judgment, without shame or condemnation, acknowledging that I am angry over whatever it is. Simply acknowledging that you are angry releases the barriers to the gift that's behind the anger. There's this whole bundle of energy that, if channeled productively, becomes a creative source of growing something. Anger hasn't come to destroy anything. It's come to build something that's necessary to be built. But if you bundle it up and it becomes this ugliness when we think, I shouldn't be angry, or my anger has come to destroy. It's not come to destroy. Your anger has come to build. It's energy. And allow it to do that.
Some of the greatest things in the world have been created because somebody got angry.
Right. Someone cared enough to get angry.
That's it. That's the name of the game. What inspired your book, Freedom is Your Birthright?
Well, that's a lovely question because, I never intended to write a book. I was in a very rough spot in my life. And I teach about the 3 pillars: health, wealth, and relationships. And when I wrote Freedom is Your Birthright, I was challenged in all 3 of mine. I had been diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. So there was my pillar of health. I had been fired from a job. So there was my pillar of wealth. And my marriage of 20 years was starting to crack. And so there was my relationship. And I, in that space, remember so clearly that I'm not feeling well, and I lied down on the kitchen floor. I was trying to cook, and I couldn't stand up long enough to cook. And in that space, I just sat there, and I eventually lied down on the kitchen floor because it was so cool. And I thought to myself, how am I making it? What is sustaining me? Because I've got these fractures. My pillars are kind of crumbling: health, wealth, and relationships. And I thought, I am using the principles that I've been studying and writing about for years. And they were very, very simple principles. And I thought I would love to share that with people, because perhaps there's someone else right now who's struggling in their health, wealth, and relationships.
And what do you offer readers in the book?
I offer readers the truth, which is that life is full of curveballs, things that we never planned. We never saw some of this stuff coming, and yet it's okay. It is absolutely okay. When you understand that you are free to give everything the meaning that it will have in your life. One thing I love, I didn't put this in the book, but I thought about it frequently when I wrote the book, is that when in the Garden of Eden, when Adam was to name everything, right? And that's what we do in our life. We name everything. We give everything meaning. And so knowing that that freedom. You have the freedom to call this situation what it is. Will this be the thing that ruins you? Or will this be the moment that you finally decided that this right here was the reason that you could not stop, that you would succeed no matter what? Freedom is your birthright. Your perspective is up to you. You have that freedom. It takes great responsibility to exercise it, however, right? We have to deny some things. We've got to decide that it's not as profitable to sit around and complain. And it's okay to allow emotions to come, but we've got to give up the victim mentality to move in our true purpose.
And what are some of the tools that you offer readers?
The major tool is introspection, to be able to look and see things from within, to really see what it means to you, not what it meant to your mom or to your dad or to your neighbor or your spouse. What does it mean to you? And to go deep within there and find out what is your true north. On what foundations are you making this decision? So I offer the reader ways to do that are very loving and I dare say very elementary, that this is something that I wish that we were teaching in grade school. It's just that simple. And it's just a habit of being able to say, what are my words for? How are my words serving me today? What are my thoughts for? How are my thoughts serving me today?
A lot of people have a tendency to react to things that happen to them. And it's been said by many different people in many different ways, but it's basically we cannot always control those things that happen to us, but we can control our reaction. What do you say to that?
Yeah. Well, you're right. Most of the things that these curveballs you cannot control. But the reaction is if we would slow down. That movie, The Matrix, I absolutely love that movie probably for the special effects as much as anything else, because I love how they slowed everything down. And so in that reaction to these unforeseen events that occur in our life, right, we create the next event, right? So that reaction, we create the next event. And so learning how to slow down to get a good perspective. So we're so quick to want to go into solution mode before we just watch, become the watcher. And learning how to do that. We talk about that in the book, Freedom is Your Birthright. Learning how to become the watcher. You don't need an immediate response.
I read in your bio and in your introduction to the book that you wanted to write a series of smaller books. What's next?
Yes. You would think with this COVID time I'd be working on it, but I'm sort of just focused on working at work. But the next book is on forgiveness. And again, it's going to be a tiny book because I love tiny books, probably from Norman Vincent Peale's book. But I love tiny books, and I'm working on forgiveness because forgiveness is so important. Without that, we get stuck. We are forever living in the past, dreading the future. So forgiveness is so important.
And as my wonderful mentor and teacher used to say, hatred is like taking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Absolutely. And we do it all the time. It's the same thing with withholding forgiveness. It puts us in bondage, and we think the other person's in bondage, but they're not.
And what does forgiveness do for us?
Oh, forgiveness allows you to give up something for receiving something in place of it. So you give up the animosity, you give up the hatred, and you receive in its place something so beautiful, which is the sense of joy that we talked about earlier, this sense of power, this sense of victory. It is amazing, and it is available to everyone.
So the main tools are forgiveness, presence, listening, observing.
Yeah. Yes.
And if we combine that into our toolkit, into our personal toolkit, we can change our lives.
Absolutely. And it's our life to change.
That's it. That's the key that most people don't realize, that it is our life to change.
It is. And that's the beautiful thing, that there is no one coming to save us. and that we have everything we need to save ourselves.
Absolutely. My guest, Dravon James. Dravon, please tell our listeners one more time where they can get your book and find out more about you and this wonderful work that you do.
Absolutely. Well, my book is Freedom is Your Birthright, available on Amazon. And my website is drdravonjames.com. You can also stay up with me and find out what's going on in the world of everyday peace with Dr. Dravon James on my radio program, which airs every Monday on the Unity Online Radio Network at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you happen to miss the show, you just go to that site and you can pick up the podcast there.
And when your forgiveness book is ready and comes out, please come back and join us and share it with us.
I would love to.
Dravon James, thank you so much for the work and the message that you bring to the world, and also your service to the greater community of Baltimore in your capacity as a hospital pharmacist. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us on Vox Novus. I'm Victor, the Voice, Furman. Have a wonderful week.